everyone, I'm Allie, co-founder of Potomac Beads. Join me in making this gypsy necklace. The materials were just listed, but remember you can use other size dome beads as well. If you need to purchase any materials, check out the links below me in the description for PotomacBeads.com and .eu. To begin this gypsy necklace, the first thing that we are going to do is put 2 of our domes onto our thread. I'm using 0.006 wildfire beading thread, and I have a size 12 needle. I have the 2 domes strung so that they are going the same direction, but it doesn't matter because they'll flip. What we are going to do is tie a knot to get them to stay from front to back, so it looks like 2 completely different beads as you wear the piece. I have a double knot that I'm tying to get the 2 together, leaving a 1-inch tail so I can come back and actually tie on the end of the thread to that same starter tail. Go through one more time, which is going to take 2 threads through each of the bead. You'll see 2 bridge threads then, which is going to make this a little bit more secure. As you come out of the piece, you need to add your wire guards. The wire guards I'm using in addition to closed rings. Because I have closed rings, I also need to add those rings as I'm adding the wire guard. I'm going to go up through the wire guard, down through the wire guard, and then take my needle also through one of those closed rings. Make sure that that closed ring fits right in the center of the wire guard and slide it down next to your piece. You're going to take your thread and needle then and go through the other dome, still making sure again that that wire guard is right in there. If you need to bend the wire guard so it fits nicely on top of the 2, you can do so. That link is going to sit right in there, and I'm going to put a wire guard on the other side. For the first one that you do, you can put another jump ring right in. When you get in and you do multiples, you're going to attach them to the last one in the set since the closed rings. If you don't want to attach as you go, you can always use jump rings. From here, I'm going to go in with my wire guard and go into the jump ring on the last piece that I made. If you want your colors to alternate, you're going to make sure that they do so as you string on the piece. If you want them to stay the same, again, just make sure as you're adding in that they do stay the same. I'm going to go through the jump ring from the other piece, as well as through that wire guard second side. This is going to link those 2 pieces together. And again, if you are doing the first one, you'll just put the wire guard on. Once you get this on and you go through the other side of the dome bead, you're going to come out on that first side where you added the jump ring. I'm making my dome beads alternate in color as they go along the piece, but you can keep them so that they go the same color. Again, that'll just determine which way you string onto that already existing jump ring. Coming out the bottom of that dome bead, back at the starter side, I'm going to take my thread and needle underneath the threads that connect the 2 beads together. I'm going to get untwisted from my jump ring here, and take the threads underneath through those 2 beads. So I have the thread coming out underneath those 2 threads. We're going to add our starter row, which is going to be our middle of our seed beads here, and our drops. I have the Miyuki drops in the Crystal Lab Full and the 15-0 seed beads in the Duracoat Galvanized Gold. We're going to put on a series of 15s with 8 drops alternating. You do want to start and end with a 15-0 seed bead. So I have my 8 drops on here and I'm coming out below those 2 threads. I'm going to sew through the threads at the base of that bead connection as well, which will take me to the other side. As I do so, it pulls those 8 drops with the 15s on either side right in next to the middle of the seed bead, or the middle of the domes, to kind of close them off. We're going to repeat the same thing on the other side now, starting and ending with a 15, adding in 8 of my drops, and then going underneath that bridge thread on the other side as well. After sewing underneath that bridge thread, you're going to bring your thread and needle through the purple or the first side bead and to the other side. It's going to kind of lock those drops right in place right along the piece. From here, we're going to go in and add in 21 15-0 seed beads. The 15-0 seed beads are going to get added to one side. After I have 21 on, I'm going to sew down through that dome, coming out exactly where my thread is starting. I've got 21 seed beads on, and I'm going to go back down through that same Hollycock purple dome bead. The domes that I'm using are the 14 by 8 millimeter. If you're using a smaller size, you're just going to use less drops and less seed beads. Now that you have those seed beads hanging out there on the side of that one, I'm going to add the seed beads on the left side as well too, again sewing down and ending through at the bottom of this same dome. Once you've put those 21 beads on, your thread is coming out the bottom of that purple bead. I'm going to go to that original side of 21, and I am through, is that there's 7 of those? I'm going to go up to number 12. Once I'm at number 12 of those original 21, I'm going to catch on to the drop right below it. So my thread's going from the seed beads to the drop. Pulling it down tight, that's going to lock it in so it stays down. Go back 2 seed beads, back to bead number 10, and sew through in that same direction then to the other side. Once you get to the top of these seed beads here, you're going to add in 1 more of your drop beads. If you notice that a drop is really wide or really thin, go ahead and grab another one so that way it doesn't affect the pattern. On the other side here then, same thing. Sew back through 12 beads, grab the drop below it, sew through that drop below to catch it on, and I'm only sewing through the drop. I'm not sewing through any of the 15-0 seed beads. If you happen to catch onto a 15-0 seed bead, don't worry about it. Usually you can add through 1 more seed bead at the top line as well. Once you're through that drop bead here, and mine really wants to grab the 15, there we go. Once you're through that drop bead, make sure that your thread is going just to that drop. Again, go back 2 beads, 3 if it's a wide one, and sew back through to the other side. That'll pull those beads down along the side. When you get to the top here on this second side, as we go around the circle, same thing at the opening, we're going to add in a drop. Move that stop thread out of the way just so it doesn't by accident get sewn through. Again, add a drop. My drops sitting here kind of have a chunky top or a thin top, so I'm going to get one with an average. Sew through the other side. That's going to pull that drop right in the middle to sit right nicely on that little gypsy piece. From here, we're going to get to the other side of the piece by going up through the seed beads, along that first row again, and pushing through. Sometimes with this, even with a size 12 needle with the Duracoat galvanized, it can get a little tight where you've already sewn through before, but I have not had a problem getting any of these through with a little tiny tug. From here then, I want you to bring your thread and needle out through the drop and then out through the first 15 right after the drop. Usually if you can get your thread and needle through that 15 right away, right after the drop, it's a little bit easier. Coming out then through that 15-0 seed bead, we're going to basically create a link to the other side. To do so, we're going to link it with 3 15-0s. I also want you to pick up a 15, a drop, and a 15. Follow that with 3 15-0s. Coming back to the original side, I'm going to sew through the last 15 before the drop, and the 15 after it. When you pull tightly, you want to make sure that this is below the wire guard, or below the ring, that soldered ring, and kind of to the sides of the wire guard. Pinch it in there, and it'll fit exactly, right like that. This creates a little seam that kind of hides the thread and also pulls it back together. From here, we're going to go to the other side, going through those 3 15s that we just added. Wiggling along, you can see if you do struggle a little bit, just give a tiny little pull. Go through the 3 15s that you just added that are linking the two together. through that first 15 after the drop, through the drop, and through the 15 after the drop. From here, you're going to add in your seed beads on the alternate side. When you're adding the seed beads on the alternate side, we already have one on. So remember, we added 21 at first. We are now going to add a series of 20 new 15-0 seed beads. Once those 20 seed beads are on, you're going to sew through that green light spring dome back towards the start here, making sure those seed beads sit in front of the drops. Give a nice tight pull so it brings that drop kind of down to the center. Coming out the top here, you're going to go through the 15 right next to the drop, away from the drop, basically coming out between the drop and those 3 15s. Pull that tight again to force that down there and get that last drop to sit up. And now repeat. 20 more seed beads go onto your needle. And once you have those 20 seed beads on the needle, we're going to go back through that spring green again. So 20 go on, back through the spring green, and we'll come out basically right at the top where our thread is currently exiting. Now that those 20 are on, I'm back through that spring green, pulling the needle through and putting those 20 seed beads along the outer edge. From here, I'm going to go through that first row of seed beads here, bringing the thread and needle out along the outer edge. And what I need to do along this outer edge here is exactly what we've been doing on the other side, where I'm going to sew down through 12 of the 15-0s and link it into the drop below. Once you link it into the drop below, it pulls it nice and tightly down the side and holds it in place. Sewing back through again just the drop. Once you pull that out, so back through 2 or 3 of the seed beads previous. So back through 9, 10, 11, or 10, 11, and 12. Through to the other side. When we get to the other side, time to add our second drop. Add your drop. Sew through bead number 1 here. And we're going to create our link from the one side to the other side. Add in 3 15s. Go over to the opposite side, and it's a little bit hard to see because you have that link there, but we're just doing that 3 bead gap that closes that up. Go through the 15, the drop, and the 15 along the purple side. Make sure those seed beads sit in between the rows of the drops. On the other side, exiting the 15, next to the drop, go ahead and add 3 more seed beads. So this is how you do the connection point of each side. Moving that stop bead then thread off to the side. You'll be able to hide that wonderfully. Go into that side that you just came from, that green color. Go through the 15 and the drop. Again, making sure those seed beads sit right next to the wire guard. Come along this second side now. Go up through those 12 15-0s. Connecting the side seed beads so they stay down. Once you're through there, you are going to simply get back to the top of the dome here. Take the thread through the dome and tie the thread off onto that starter thread. This is then done, and you will start on to your next one. So coming out through here, you want to go through the first 15 right next to the drop, out that 15 or through the drop, doesn't really matter, and then down through that dome bead to the other side. Once you go down through the dome bead to the other side, again, you have the nice opportunity to go in and really, really easily conceal this thread. Take your thread over to where that starter thread is, just kind of ducking underneath seed beads so you don't see it at all. And tie the 2 thread ends together. When you tie the 2 thread ends together, again, this component piece is finished. You're gonna do right over left, left over right, and then I would suggest using a thread burner, and that's gonna burn down the edges of the thread. When you go in and tie this tight, again, make sure that that knot disappears in between the middle of some of those drops. Lastly, again, thread burner goes on. Take that thread burner, burn through those 2 thread ends, and then go in and burn those thread ends down. That finishes up that component, and you just repeat. If you ever need to repeat or check anything out again, remember you can rewind this YouTube video, as well as in your settings, slow it down also if you do need to have another little relook at the piece. I have 2 more to make and add together, and then I will add on my chain to the back of the necklace. Once you have your little gypsy components done, you can link them again if you want to, just adding the wire guards with some jump rings, link them to some chain, or you can even link the chain directly into that last wire guard so you don't have to use one of the soldered rings. You can cut it to length, do as many as you want, do one, hang a tassel down from it since it has that nice reversible side and kind of that seamless edge with that band going around the 2 dome beads. The fun of this necklace is that it is reversible. I ended up doing every other bead with the colors, so that way when I put it on, it's 2 different colors, but it'll hang in all different versions. With all of these as well, the different YouTube videos, you can subscribe to this YouTube channel and you'll get regular updates from us here at Potomac Beads. You can also give a little thumbs up if you like this video and check out the necklace when you are wearing it too. You can also comment below and say what you're doing, if you're using smaller beads and smaller domes, what that count is, and then also change up the design. Keep in mind you could use daggers along the ends if you want to make it a little bit more floral, or have fun with that. As always, if you need any materials, check out the links below me in the description to PotomacBeads.com as well as PotomacBeads.io. Thanks so much for joining me in making this gypsy necklace.